Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Welcome back to the show. Today we have Marley Alless. She's a founder at Rax. Marley, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. I think what you're building at Rax is actually really innovative and cool, much needed, and you already have a bunch of people using the platform. But before we dive into all that, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Yeah, I'm born and raised in Toronto. Been here my whole life, so not too interesting of a story there.
Okay, fair enough. You went to university. What did you take and why?
Yeah, I went to Queen's Commerce, so studied business at Queen's. Really, to me, like, I always knew I wanted to study business. It was either like Queen's, Commerce, Western Ivy. Like, those were kind of my two main ones that I really wanted to go to. So yeah, knew I wanted to do business from a young age, and then studied there. I also studied abroad in Australia for a semester, and
Nice.
then also did my MBA in technology a couple years ago, which was great as well.
Okay, so what made you want to go back and take an MBA in tech?
Well, the amazing thing was I was working at Ernst & Young at the time, and they actually launched a program where they partnered with the university to give their employees a free MBA.
Oh, wow.
So really
That's
couldn't
awesome.
say no to a free MBA.
Yeah, fair enough.
And at the time, I had the idea for Rax too. So it really was just like, okay, if I'm going to build a tech product, I need to have some sort of tech background because my background's in marketing. So it was just really a great time.
Oh, that's awesome. So how did you come up with the idea for Rax, and then let's dive into it?
It came from my own pain point. I was going to a friend's wedding, and I really wanted this expensive, like, $500 dress, and I didn't want to spend $500 on a dress that I knew I was just going to wear once. So I was familiar with, like, resale apps like Poshmark and Depop where you can buy people's used clothing, and I thought there must be something that exists for renting clothes. Like, that dress that I want to wear for sure exists in someone's wardrobe in Canada. So how can I just get it from them, pay, like, I don't know, $80 instead of $500 to wear it? And to my surprise, nothing like that existed. There were brick and mortar rental boutiques where they own the inventory. You can go in, try it on. But I did that. I found the styles to be outdated. Not a lot of things that I wanted to rent. I kind of rented what I wanted to rent. So it just came from my own pain point and being really surprised that nothing like it existed in Canada.
Okay, no, makes total sense. So I'm curious then, you have this pain point, but what makes you actually decide to be like, I need to be the one that builds this?
Such a good question, because I feel like anyone can say, like, oh, my friends and I were talking, this doesn't exist, like, we
Yeah.
should create it, and then nothing happens. Like, I probably have that conversation, I don't know, tons of times with my friends. I think for me, I've always been fascinated with entrepreneurship and startups and how companies start and become successful. Even before I had the idea for Rax, I was listening to all the podcasts like yours and reading all the books, and I don't know, it was just something in me that I found it so fascinating. So not that I was looking for my own problem or pain point, but when I came across something that didn't exist and I was passionate about, I think just because I've always been interested in it, I was like, let's see if I can start this.
Okay, so you decide that you're going to be the one to build this. Walk us through the early stages of actually, like, starting to build this thing, because from my understanding, you built this yourself, right? Or at least the first version?
So so good question. I had no experience in app development.
Okay.
I didn't know, I knew app, like, development languages like React and Python and all that, but, like, that's about it.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah, but knew nothing about it. So I, went to development agencies. I told them I had this idea, I wanted to get quotes, and they were like, okay, that's going to be like $100,000 and it'll take a year. And I was like, oh gosh, well, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And that's where I got familiar with the world of no code. A lot of them are still startups themselves. I used a platform called Adalo, which is very startup-y, very slow and laggy, which isn't great. I didn't know that at the time when I was building. So I built some of the product myself, also had to get a developer on because they say no code, but it is quite a bit of coding, especially when you start integrating like APIs like Stripe and Canada Post and things like that. So I did need a developer for some of it, but I built some of it myself just so it was cheaper, quicker to market, to just test if this was even an idea or a thing that people would want to use.
No, makes total sense. So I'm curious, we can get into your kind of 2.0 moving to React, but how much quicker and cost effective, say you got a quote for 100 grand, how much did it cost you in comparison to go no code for a V1 compared to that like 100 grand? Was it 10 grand, 20 grand, 50 grand? How much cheaper was it?
Yeah. So my quote for fully coded was 100 grand and like just less than a year.
Yeah.
My quote for no code was 10 grand and 2 months.
Yeah.
I will say it probably doubled or tripled in timing and in budget, because you give them a skeleton model of what you want. As you build, you run into bugs. You were like, oh, I need this feature, I need that. So it did kind of take 2 to 3 times as long and as expensive, but still significantly less expensive and less time than building out a fully coded app, especially when it's something new and you don't even know if people are going to want it, and you're bootstrapping it as well. You don't have funding.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's actually really good advice, because, and as somebody that's been in tech and development a long time, like that 100 grand would have easily turned to 150, 200, with all those iterations. And so I guess the point I'm trying to get across is like, you can do this stuff a lot significantly cheaper in no code, at least as an MVP, maybe even a version 1, and you might have to rebuild, or you will have to rebuild in the future, but at least you can say like, here's my V1, basically take this V1 and put it in a new language that we can start now, really, because we validated the market, and it's a lot better to lose tens of thousands of dollars than hundreds of thousands of dollars, right?
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I wish I almost did it leaner than an app. Like, I wish I almost didn't even do the no code. And I maybe created like an Instagram account, and I was like, I got my dresses, my sister's dresses, my friends' dresses, and started posting them. And then maybe I could have like reached out to people, been like, hey, anyone else have dresses they want me to post on the Instagram? And then, who wants to borrow these dresses, and like test the flows that way. Like,
interesting.
Like that's 100% cheap. Like, you don't pay anything, it's free. And then you can at least test the idea and the model of like, do people want to borrow and rent things? Let's go through logistics. How do we meet up with people? What happens if the dress gets ruined? How do we integrate shipping into this? Like, I wish I almost started like completely lean, and then maybe built that no code, and then maybe went to, React or one of the other coded versions, before like building out a coded app when I didn't even know if people were going to use it.
Interesting. No, I think that's actually really good advice too, right? For people out there building these things, because you're right. Like, a lot of times if you really simplify it, you can go take a free version just to validate the idea. Maybe only do it for a couple of months. It doesn't have to be try it for a year. And then you can maybe build a no code thing, and then maybe you can go to React. So you kind of touched on it, but what made you decide to go, out of no code into React?
The app was so slow and laggy, and it's one of those things that like, as you build, you test different features, it works, it's fine, and then when the whole app was done, like, there was just way too many buttons and listings and screens that it was just so slow. So I even was like, should I even launch this? Like, it's
interesting.
So slow and laggy, like, will people even use this? It's gonna be a bad customer experience. I decided to launch it anyways, because I just spent all this money and time building this app. Might as well put it out there, and it's almost the best form of product market fit. If people are using something that barely works and they're still willing to put in the time and wait for buttons to load and figure things out, then they'll use a fully built out version. So we just got to the point where we scaled to thousands of users, and people were reaching out daily being like, hey, I want to use the app, but like, it's not loading, or hey, I want to post something, it's not loading. So really it came from validating the idea and just needing to get to the next stage on an app that actually works.
Makes sense. Okay. So how did you pick a team to build the React app, or how did you go about actually getting this thing built?
Yeah, that was the hardest part, because again, I'm bootstrapping it. So I didn't have money to bring on someone's salary to be a software engineer and pay them 150 grand or however much it would have been. So I had to literally just cold outreach people on LinkedIn being like, hey, I have this app. And I think people liked it because one, it was already live, and two, I had users. So I was able to show traction versus I'm sure software engineers and developers get messages every day being like, hey, I have this idea, can you build it? Or just reach out from big companies wanting to pay them a lot of money. So I think they aligned with, the vision of Rax to transform the fashion industry. It's something new. And we already had users and some traction in a V1, like you mentioned before. They had this model they could take and exactly build it because everything's already there. All the screens, all the messaging, all the language, the UI, the UX, the design, like everything was there. They just had to rebuild it. And upon launching the rebuilt version, we're already going to have a list of thousands of users to be like, hey, V2 is out. But yeah, I really just cold outreach to thousands.
Interesting.
Probably.
The thing that's interesting, and because it happens to me all the time, and I've been burnt in the past, where somebody like yourself, and I'm not saying you, and they come to you with an idea, whether they have an app or not, and they want you to build it, but the challenging, the tech part is actually the easy part. The hard part of getting a company off the ground, especially like a startup in the tech space, has nothing to do with the tech. It's actually getting users, which is all sales and marketing. Because if nobody actually logs in or creates an account on your app, it doesn't matter if you have 0 features or 1 million features. But the challenge and the point I'm trying to get across is like, you went to people and said, look, I have a V1. I've already done the work. I'm not just like, hey, I have this idea, you build it, I'll wait until you're done building it, and then I'll sell it. And it's a gamble for people to say like, will she actually go and do her part, right? And so the fact that you actually prove to people that you have already done the work and are willing to do the work and will continue to do the work really probably benefited you to where people are like, yeah, I will gamble on this, because you've already put in the time and effort to get a V1 out. Whether it's good, bad, or other is almost irrelevant.
There's a saying, if they build it, they will come. Yeah. And that's not true at all.
No.
Like you mentioned, like you can have the best product, and if no one knows it exists, no one will be on it. No one will use it. Even before I launched V1 of Rax, the no-code app, I was building up my wait list. I was posting on social media, TikTok and Instagram, saying, hey, I have this idea. I'm building this app. Like, we're going to launch in a few months. What should the logo be? Like, I was taking people along the journey. Like, I just bought this $500 dress. I'm going to rent it out for $60. Will anyone rent this from me? Do you have any dresses like this? Like, I was kind of educating the market and building up a wait list and excitement around it, not just building for 3 months without telling anyone what I was doing. So even when we launched that V1, we already had people that knew that Rax was, that followed our journey, that, have been waiting for the app to come out. So because my background is in marketing, I was a growth strategist for 6 different startups. In my spare time now, I'm a marketing lead at an AI startup. So I've always kind of had that startup growth experience, and I was able to apply that directly to Rax, which I think people the developers and software engineers liked, because they knew that we were going to get some sort of, hopefully, traction from my marketing background.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I want to dive into more of the marketing strategy, launch strategy in a bit, but I want to come back to the actual Rax app and maybe dive a little bit deeper into how it works and how it's going to work with the new versions. Is it going to be the same, a little bit different? Walk us through that.
So we're launching very lean, literally just the borrow and lend function to get it out there. And then we have the longest product roadmap you can imagine of 100 more features we want to launch, but just want to get it out there to replace this no-code app. But it'll be a very similar functionality. So let's say I'm a lender and I have, 5 dresses in my closet that I want to list out. I go onto the app and I click the plus button at the bottom of the screen, and I fill in details like brand and size and color and a description of the item. I upload photos, how much it cost. The app will automatically recommend a 20% of retail value. So say my dress is $100, we recommend you rent it out for $20.
Okay.
And you put in your address so people can see oh, this is 10 kilometers from me. We never share your actual address, obviously, for privacy reasons, but you can just see it's in Toronto, it's 10 kilometers from you. And then you post it. So that's kind of the lender flow. You can get an item up in just a few minutes. From a borrower's perspective, you log on to our app, you can filter for things like size, color, and then you can scroll through. You see an item you like, you can click borrow, And depending on how long the lender listed out for, you can rent for as little as 4 days or up to 6 months if the lender allows it.
Okay.
So you choose the borrow period, what dates you want it. So maybe I want it for a wedding in like May. I can book in as early as possible to make sure it's available. And it knows my address. So it'll say like, this is 5 kilometers from you. Do you want to pick up locally or do you want to do shipping? And Canada Post is integrated into the app. So all the labels are generated. You don't have to worry about like inputting your address and their address and how much it costs. Like it's all done. And then, yeah, you just click borrow and then you can book as far in advance as you want, which is great to make sure it's available for your dates. But we tried to really simplify it and like answer any questions that might come up as people go through the journey, because it is a new thing. It's a new idea. People don't know how it works. So each phase of the user journey where someone has a question, we make sure to answer it.
Got it. Okay. So how does it work then? Or how do you monetize the platform? Are you there yet, or where are you at with that?
We take 20% of each transaction. So
Okay.
if someone rents their dress for $100, they make 80 and we make 20.
Okay.
So yeah, just a standard like commission-based marketplace transaction model.
Got it. Okay. And so you said you were kind of bootstrapping this. I know like every time I'm on LinkedIn, you seem to be like winning something or getting recognized for something. So like walk us through how you've actually done some of that, because obviously it ties into your marketing side, but you know, that stuff, like you deserve it. Obviously they're not going to just give it to you because you applied, right? Like you have to, they validate this stuff.
I have a reminder in my calendar every month to look into like pitch competitions, grants, awards, like just like things going on in the community that I can get involved in, because there's a lot out there. You just don't know of it until you search it. So I basically just apply to everything. But I try to be very thoughtful in my applications. Like I think a lot of people now are just using like ChatGPT to generate answers, and it's all the same sounding stuff.
Yeah.
And I really try to tailor my responses depending on what I'm applying to. So if it's more of like environmental grant, then I'll kind of talk about the environmental benefits of renting. If it's business, I'll talk about like our numbers and how the market of rental is growing. Like I really try to tailor my pitch depending on who I'm talking to, what I'm applying to, and just tell my story as well. Like, you know, someone that had no background in startup and wanted to bootstrap this company and like had this, you know, crazy dream and started it all on her own. Like I really try to tell sort of like that story. So hopefully the person on the other side can relate to it, and you know, it shines through what I'm trying to do and my passion for it.
No, very cool. So I want to dive into some of the like maybe questions that people would have while using the app. So if I'm lending out something of mine, like what happens if it gets lost or damaged or like that kind of thing? How does that work?
We want to make sure there's zero liability on the lender. So if you rent out your suit, for instance, and someone completely ruins it, they are liable for paying for the damages. So
Okay.
they can opt in for a protection policy. So say they, you know, pay for the insurance and they spill red wine on your suit. They're covered for dry cleaning if they opt into it. If not, they have to pay for it. And we're very clear on that. Like it's up to the borrower to take care of people's items. If they borrow your suit and you never get it back, we charge their credit card the full value of the suit and then we reimburse you. And we make sure that people take photos of the item before they send it back to you, and you take a photo when you receive it. So we try to have like this photo evidence, so you know, people can't say like, "Oh, I returned it in perfect quality," because we have like the time-stamped photos as well.
So obviously you could probably come up with some of these use cases before you launched, but some of them must have come up just as you have people actually using and, you know, trading and borrowing and selling different clothing. So how have you kind of managed that and actually getting those updates into the app? Because if something happens, you're like, oh, we need to add that. Like, how have you kind of managed your roadmap compared to like this is kind of stupid to call it like a feature request, but it is basically a feature you need to put into the app. So how have you kind of managed that?
I tried to map out as many scenarios as I possibly could before launching. So like someone gets an item, it doesn't fit. Someone's event gets canceled and they have to cancel.
Right.
Someone ruins an item. Someone decides they don't like it anymore. Someone can't get a hold of the lender. They're not responding, so they can't meet up. Like I really tried to map out all these scenarios and have like things in place on how we're going to address them, and then what features can we do to address them as well. But like you mentioned, you launch and like things come up that you might not have even thought of. So being a startup and a lean team, like we're able to just kind of think of something and like work on it that day, like push everything aside if it's a priority, where obviously a lot of these other like huge companies have their long product roadmaps, and one thing to change like the color of a button takes like a month for some reason. So we try to operate in this really like lean model where we have an idea, it's a priority, like let's just launch it. And I think that's the beauty of startups too, like think of something and you do it that day.
No, makes sense. So I think you alluded to it, but are you working on this full time? Or are you kind of doing contract work, or how are you surviving?
Yeah, I was full time for about 5 months, which was
Okay.
really fun. But I got a great opportunity to be a contractor at an AI startup to lead their marketing. So I'm doing that for my day job and then working on Racks at night. And when I first started Racks, I was actually working a 9 to 5 and doing my MBA and Racks. So
Oh, wow.
only having a full time job and Racks, it seems like.
You have so much time now.
Yeah, I'm like, whatever, that's totally fine.
Fair enough. No, and I think I'm glad that you're honest about that, because I think like a lot of startups or founders actually do either have a full-time job or contract on the side, or whatever. But not a lot of people actually admit that, right? Especially in the early stages. Like it's hard to go from coming up with an idea, launching, and then actually making like a good salary that you were making before, right? And I think to your point earlier, it's like everybody thinks they just launch something and like you put it in the app stores and you get like 1 million downloads and your bank account's full of cash. It's like maybe in 3 to 5 years.
Maybe if you're the 10%, like the numbers are, I think like only 10% of startups last over 3 years. Like it's some crazy number, like 90%
Oh, yeah.
of startups fail.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think people over glamorize startups, and they think you start your own business, so you work no hours and just have this money coming in, and really it's the exact opposite. Like you work all hours and probably have no money coming in for the first few years, and if you're lucky, you keep going, or not quit, because I don't like the word quit, but stop.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely the opposite of what people think.
Yeah, 100%. Well, yeah. So, but how have you gotten through kind of the highs and lows of that? Like, I'm sure there's many days that you've been like, forget it, I'm done. But like, how have you kind of persevered and kept going when the times have gotten challenging?
I think going into starting Racks, like I always knew it was gonna be tough and it was gonna be really hard. Like, not that I had low expectations, but I kind of was like, let's just build this and put it out there. I think people think it's like some huge thing to start a company, and it is, right? Like it took a lot of time and money, but the learnings that I got from even doing Racks the past couple of years have outweighed my MBA, my undergrad, my day job, like just the learnings I get. I almost think of it as like a real life MBA, or like a real life, I don't know. I wouldn't have gotten any of like my contract work. Like I wouldn't be a marketing lead at an AI startup right now if I didn't do Racks. So everything kind of led me to where I am, and I'm so passionate now about startups. Like I found my love of just growing and scaling companies. Like that's what I do on the side, act as a growth advisor for startups, and I wouldn't have found that without Racks. So I think going into it, I knew it was gonna be hard. So when I am faced with something that's like makes me want to quit, I allow myself now to take breaks and just like take a step back and actually have that time for myself. Whereas before I would just work day and night and never take that time. But I think going into the mindset of like, what can I learn from this versus like, I just want to make money and like be successful is the biggest mind switch people can have to feeling passionate about it every day. And I think I genuinely believe in the idea so much, and I have fun doing it. So that's kind of what keeps me going when things are tough.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So we've covered it throughout the show, and I think I really want to dive into some of the other marketing ideas that you kind of did at the beginning and that you've been doing on an ongoing basis to get it out there. Because like I was telling you earlier before we started recording, like I was playing with the app, and you have like quite a bit of users, and there's apps that have been out way longer than you that are in the same space, maybe completely different space, that don't get very many users a month, never mind daily. So how have you kind of done that?
Yeah, I'm going to touch on it a bit. Before I even launched the no code app, I had kind of like been posting on social media, Instagram and TikTok, just talking about my journey, like what I'm doing, what I'm building. So we were able to launch with a wait list. And then when I launched my no code app, obviously it was very slow and laggy. So I was almost in like two minds of like, do I even promote this? Because not that I didn't want more users, but I didn't want more users to have a bad experience. So I was just sort of doing like organic marketing where I could kind of like control the message. Like we launched this, but like it's slow and laggy, but like try it out and like give us your feedback. And had some great traction there, and just like trying to post on TikTok and Instagram and do pop-ups in local events. I was just at a high school last week actually doing a pop-up talking to girls about renting out their prom dresses.
That's a good idea, yeah.
I was at a pop-up at a bar studio the other day because if you think about my audience, it's like young and trendy females, and they're likely to be at like bar studios or spin classes or Pilates, like more of these like trendy places. So I really just try to do like in-person activations where I can just genuinely meet people and be like, hi, I'm the founder, like this is the company. And I think a lot of people think of their strategies as digital only these days, but there's a really big power in meeting people face to face. They grow connection to you and your brand, and you're able to communicate what you do, especially with racks. Like peer-to-peer rental is so new. I would say 95% of people I talk to don't know that it exists, or in a lot of questions. So it's helpful for me to be there in person and like answer it for them and show them how it works. Obviously that's not that scalable, but hopefully when we have the new app and more users, it's sort of like more word of mouth, and we can kind of educate people that way. But yeah, it was a lot of just like word of mouth and me meeting people and telling them my story.
No, I think that's actually really interesting. And I also think it's interesting, and it seems to be a lot more companies are doing this as of late. They're basically calling out the pain points before their users tell them, right? Because the reality is like, well, you could like, okay, you keep saying your app's slow and laggy. It's like, well, you can't tell me that it's slow and laggy if I told you first, kind of. It's like, yes, I know, I already said that, right? It's like, there's no like, yeah. So it's interesting. So
yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
You can have a pop-up on the app when you first open it, like, hey, this is our V1. Like, you'll notice it's a bit slow and laggy, but like we're relaunching soon. If you any questions, if you need any help, like reach out. So we literally call it out like when people open the app, because they can't say it's slow and laggy. Then like I'm telling you, it's slow.
Yeah. And you almost say like expect it, right? And you're setting expectations. The other thing that I think works in your favor, and people might hate me for saying this, is like there's a lot of big companies right now that are releasing stuff that's very buggy, and so like you're like, it's almost sad to say, it's almost become acceptable, right? In the sense it's like, oh yeah, well, especially if it's early, right? And especially if you're honest, people are just like, okay, the new one's coming, I'll struggle through it and whatever, it's fine.
Yeah, and I think because I know it's like me behind the brand. Like if someone reaches out to me, I'm always like, hi, I'm Marley, I'm the founder. Like I explain it, versus I think if like a huge company launches something slow and laggy, you're like, you have millions of dollars, you have teams of hundreds or like thousands of people, like why is it slow and laggy? Versus when I respond, I'm like, hi, it's just me. I'm just dropping this, and like they're like, okay, no problem, like so excited for you. So
yeah,
I think being transparent, and like I always post on LinkedIn, to your point, like my failures, and not failures, I don't like that word either, but like just things I'm going through with the app, and like it's slow and laggy, and we just launched this feature, and like I'm very transparent about it. So that's just not only a marketing acquisition channel and something that people aren't really active on LinkedIn, so when you kind of see these posts, it's a bit exciting, but also just taking people along the journey. People have been really, really nice, even though the app is slow, I think, because calling it out and like being vulnerable.
Yeah, I think people appreciate the like brutal honesty, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So I'm curious, what other ideas or thoughts do you have for people that are launching an app? The other, I guess, part two to that is like, do you think you need to be in the app stores, or can you just get away with like a web app that people could use in the browser? Or what are your thoughts around that?
I think if you want to launch an app, to my point earlier, like how can you do it even more lean? Like for me, I could have done an Instagram where I posted the listings and grew it that way. So think of ways you can do things for free just to test the idea. You can do it for a month, 2 months, just until you kind of validate it. And then to your next point, like a web app would have been probably a lot easier to build and cheaper. The only friction point with mine, for instance, was people are uploading their own listings, and that's not really an action people do on the website, right? Like to take a photo of the dresses with your phone, and then you have to, I don't know, email it to yourself or text it to yourself. And so, right, like that was the friction point of why I didn't do it. But I think a lot of companies out there a lot of people are like, oh, let's just start an app, let's just launch it, especially in like the 2010s, like when the App Store first started booming. It was like everyone and their mom had an app. And then I think that just become the thing. For me, like I really needed to, just because people were taking photos of their items.
Yeah, you need that functionality.
Website, I probably would have, and then just optimized it for mobile as well. But yeah.
No, I actually think that's really good advice because, again, like we get the, oh, it needs to be an app. It's like, yeah, but why? Like what functionality? In your case, it makes total sense. But like in a lot of cases, just like you could just just use a mobile version. And because to your point earlier, it's like everybody thinks you put something in the App Store and then you get 1 million downloads. It's like you might get like 10 and you'd be like over the moon. Like it sounds stupid, but getting 10 downloads is like a big deal now. Like when you first launch and nobody's heard of you.
Downloading an app is one of the hardest actions to get someone to take. Like for that to take up real estate on their phone, for them to go into the App Store and search it and download it and put in their information, like it really is one of the highest intent and hardest actions to get someone to take. Versus if someone's, searching on Google and they come across you, whatever, like they can click in, blah, blah, blah. But like hosting that real estate on someone's screen is the hardest action. So unless you really need a mobile app, like for me with the functionality of taking a photo and uploading it, I would probably suggest doing website first. And then if it does really well, maybe launch an app. But yeah, definitely leading with an app is a hard thing to do. Yeah,
it's interesting. I think the last stat I read was like people use like 6 to 8 apps tops. Like it's that amount. So if you need to replace one of those or get added as the 9th app, it's like it's hard, right? Like you're competing with a lot. Yeah, that's interesting.
Unless they're using it, I think there's a stat where it's like if someone doesn't use it every like week or even every couple of days, like don't be an app. I think for me, like they're probably not using it every week, but they're using it every couple of weeks when they have an event and they want to search for items. So they get a new dress and they want to list it. So yeah, there's that stat too, where like if someone's not going to be on your app every week, what's the point of having that on their screen?
No, that makes a lot of sense. So you've kind of mentioned, you've been to pop-up, you've done some pop-up things, you've went to high schools, you go to different classes. Like, how do you come up with some of those ideas and what advice do you give to people? Because it's hard, right? To think of like, how can I be, and to your point, it like doing one of those things obviously takes a bunch of your time. So how do you kind of come up with those ideas and then, obviously you keep doing the stuff that works and stop doing the stuff that doesn't work. But how do you come up with some of those ideas and then decide to kind of try them?
First is knowing your customer so well. Like, who are you targeting? And I don't want someone to say I'm targeting, a female that's 16 to 35. Like, that is way too broad. Where do they hang out? What do they like? What shows do they watch? What do they consume on social media? What messaging do they relate to? What like memes and things going on the internet or cultural references are they relating to? Like know your customer so well where you can show up where they are. So for me, they're at bar classes, they're at spin studios, they're doing Pilates. They follow these certain influencers that I can try to reach out to. They're in high school, they're going to prom. Like know your customer so well and then map out where they attend, where they show up, and how can you get in front of them that way. So that's kind of how I map out, what channels to go on and do things in the beginning too that aren't scalable. Like me going to pop-ups and talking to people and maybe I only talk to, 50 people and get 5 downloads from that. Like that's not scalable, but in the early days, do these scalable these things that aren't scalable because the insights that I get from meeting my target customers face-to-face, learning what questions they have, is just so invaluable that you don't get from just posting something on Instagram.
No, makes sense. So how did you figure out some of the stuff that you just outlined, like their favorite shows? Like, are you using the internet? Like, are you paying for that data? How are you getting some of that data and doing that research?
I think it's helpful because I am truly my exact target audience.
Okay.
And I know a competitor that used to be in this space, and it was, like a 50-year-old male and female who were trying to launch like something like this. And I think that's just like not the audience of a fashion rental app. Like my mom has definitely used Rax to support me, but I don't think she would be using it without that, right? So I think it definitely helps that I am my target audience. So I'm consuming the things they're consuming on social media. I'm going to bar classes. Like I am that girl. And I think that is helpful to kind of know like what I like, how I like to be spoken to, what brands I like, what, colors and logos and even just like how the look of things. Like I think it's very helpful that I kind of can be my own target audience. My friends are my target audience as well. So when you can relate to your user in that way, I think it's really helpful. And even just my background of being in growth marketing, even if it was industries that I'm not the target audience of at all, I think you kind of like learn from those different industries and just trying and experimenting and scaling the things that work.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. It's interesting when you're the target audience, because then when you go talk to other people, they can relate. And like when you, like perfect example is when I go, like, well, I'll take my son to like a sports thing that he's in. Like, I don't follow hockey a ton. Edmonton's in the playoffs right now. I have to start following hockey just because I look like a total idiot if I have no idea what's going on, right? But where if you go to somewhere and you can talk about everything people are talking about and people can relate to you, and then it's just like an easier thing. And then they're like, yeah, I will try out that app. I had a really good conversation, and people like to genuinely support you. But if you come to them and you're clearly not their target audience or who they are, they're kind of like, they just forget it, right? And so I think being relatable and understanding what's happening to and matters to that target audience, it makes a ton of sense. And it's really valuable.
Yeah, like even my previous jobs when I was acting as like head of growth fractional CMO to startups, one of my clients, my target audience were construction workers.
Yeah.
And like foremen and site owners. And like I cannot relate to them. Like I could not be less related to that.
Sure.
But you have to learn about it, right? Like I learned where they hung out. I learned how they like to be spoken to, like what channels they use. A lot of the time they're not even on social media. They barely even use their phone. So how do we target them? Is it radio ads that they listen to at their site, right? Like you learn and you almost have to put yourself in those shoes. It's just definitely more helpful that I naturally am my target audience. So it's more authentic. Like I don't have to learn and try to relate to the construction worker. Like I am the user of Racks.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So I'm curious, where do you kind of go from here? Are you looking to raise money? Are you looking to move to other markets? Obviously, like once you launch the app, the new version, but like where do you kind of go from here?
When I first had the idea for Racks, I had no idea about the fundraising landscape. I was like, oh, I have this idea. It doesn't really exist in Canada. It's going to be easy to raise money. And I reached out to angels and VCs. And again, I didn't even know what these really were before launching Racks. It was a lot of learning and pitching. And it is so hard to raise money, especially in Canada, unless one, you're doing something so crazy different that no one has ever heard of, or two, you have scaled to, tens of thousands of users, hundreds of thousands in revenue, then you can raise money. So, maybe in the early 2000s or like 2010s when tech was really booming, it was easier. Or if you're an AI company, you can probably raise right now. But it was really difficult. So I tried to raise, and then I think the mindset has kind of shifted as well. People used to think you're only successful if you raise, right? Like you raise $3 million, you must be successful. I think there's a lot to do now with like showing that you can bootstrap and the value of like $1 can get you. And if you can grow something with $1, what can you do if you give me $100, right? So I think I want to launch this new app, hopefully in May. Hopefully my developers are listening to this so they know we have to launch. And, really try to do some of the growth things that I couldn't do on my previous app. I want to work with influencers, content creators. I want to build our affiliate program and loyalty program, referrals, do more events, start paid marketing, really start focusing on TikTok and Instagram, and kind of do all these things like email marketing, like things that I haven't really been able to do just because the app was slow and laggy. And then maybe raise if we need to, and have gotten to the point where we want to expand. I really want to expand, hopefully, into US and UK and Australia, because rental is pretty popular in those markets as well. But
sure, no, it makes a lot of sense. It's interesting too that you talk about raising money. It can be really, really tricky. It's also like, do you need to raise money? Like going back to your earlier points, it's like you validated your idea for free on Instagram, basically, and then you build this thing that costs you, thousands of dollars, maybe no code. Like it's a hell of a lot better to raise money once you have users and validate and giving away, 40% of your company, for a couple $100,000 or $100,000 instead of giving away, say 10% of your company for hundreds of thousands of dollars once you validated your idea, right? Like it's an interesting dynamic about when to raise money. Do you even want to raise money, right?
And what people don't realize is when you do raise, you now have these people you have to report into. They might not want you to launch a certain feature or go in this different direction. You might want to, I don't know, you have to report into people and they want to make a return on their money. So, growth at all costs has kind of stopped. That definitely used to be the old way of thinking when you raised money, but they want you to grow. They want 5, 10, 15 times return minimum on their money. And you have to show how you're going to get that. So there also comes a lot of pressure. And to your point, obviously you lose ownership in your company. You might get diluted so much that you're not even motivated anymore to grow it. And if you raise too early, also like you mentioned, you might be giving away 40% for a couple $100,000. If you're able to scale it and show some growth, you can get 10% for a couple $100,000 or whatever the numbers are. So my advice, if you can bootstrap or get pitch competition winnings, get grants, try to do that to show that you're actually a scalable company.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious, is there any other advice that you would give to people, especially women? I know it's so cliche to say, but it's nice to talk to somebody like yourself that's basically bootstrapped this as a female, because there's not a lot, right? And there needs to be more, because it's I'm not the guy to build your app, because I'm not right? You're the person to do that, right? And I think we need more people building of all different backgrounds. So what advice do you give to people that are still on the fence, that maybe have an idea, don't have an idea, but want to do it and are too scared to actually do it?
It's such a big disparity. Less than 2% of venture capital funding goes to females, which is absolutely crazy. 98% of that money is being deployed to men. That's a crazy statistic. And the numbers aren't there for females to want to start businesses, right? Because they can't get the money. The numbers show. I think for me, I mentioned, I did it without having any experience in launching a startup, working with startups. That came after I, found I was passionate about this, but I had no app development experience, no even fashion industry experience. And I did think, why would I be the one to start Racks? Why wouldn't it be someone that has experience in those areas, or a company like a Poshmark or a Depop? They're doing resale, peer-to-peer resale, so what I'm doing, but selling versus renting. Why wouldn't they spin off a rental arm? But I think if we all thought that way, no new companies would exist. So I think my advice for someone would be, if you were like me and, dreaming of starting a company, so passionate about it, loved entrepreneurship, listen to podcasts like this one, and look out for things that you have your own pain point for. For me, wanting to borrow a dress and it didn't exist, it was a very genuine, authentic problem for me to solve, and that's what kept me going, is I believe in it so much versus me trying to solve, something in some random industry I don't even connect to. So I think just take the next step. It seems so overwhelming when you have an idea to go from being live and actually scaling and growing it. But if you just do the next thing and just lay it out in front of you and take one step at a time, it's a lot more digestible.
No, I 100% agree with you. I think the other thing that you brought up that's really interesting is, sure, Poshmark or whoever could build in what you're doing, but I think the piece that people don't realize is it would be cheaper for them to acquire you as Racks and you do it, even if it costs them a couple $1 million. Because for them to build it with their team and their structure, it would take them probably 6 to 12, maybe even 2 years, just because of okay, they got to allocate a budget, a team, approvals. There's code review. There's so much that it would be cheaper for them to pay a couple $1 million for or more for you today than it would for them to start saying we need to build this ourselves. Because the reality is, if they paid for, they could probably have you working on it within days or weeks full time. they just acquired you today than if they tried to actually build it themselves, and it might not launch for 2 years or 12 months or 6 months, whatever, right? And I think people don't realize that or think about it like that. It's like they could, but it's easier in a lot of cases to just acquire you.
Yeah.
And that's assuming what you're hoping one day.
100%. Yeah, that's the dream when when anyone starts a business. And exactly, like, people don't realize it's way cheaper to acquire someone than to build it in-house. And people also don't realize is, companies are so focused on what they're doing, like what they're doing in front of them, which is great. Like, they need to be, they can't be going off in 100 different directions. But to my point, when I questioned, like, why isn't Poshmark doing this? Why isn't Depop, whatever, these resale? Like, they are so focused on resale. They're not even thinking about the other billion things they could possibly do. And that's a question I get a lot. Like, what if this company comes out and builds this? Like, you could say that to anything that any person builds, and you're always going to get those questions. Like, why wouldn't this person build it? Like, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, you just got to do it.
No, I think that's actually really good advice. And I think the other thing, too, is you've already done all the hard work. Like, you have all this knowledge in your head of, like, okay, we tried this, it worked. We kept down that path. We tried this. Oh, it didn't work. We stopped doing that. Like, that's really valuable, right? Where if somebody starts it from scratch, they need to go do all that themselves, right? That you've figured out a bunch of stuff over the last, year or so that they're starting from day one, where you're already like, you have quite the lead. Even though it might not seem like that, you actually really do.
Yeah, and these companies too, like, they don't really like have that experimentation mindset, right? Like, I try something, I launch it, I fail, I do the next thing. They, to start something like Rocks, they'd have to have a huge budget, huge teams, approval process. They are launching something that has, like, their brand name behind it, like their parent company name behind it. Like, it has to be good. Versus when I launch a no-code tool, I'm like, let's figure it out. Let's talk to users. Let's build what they want. Like, it's a totally different mentality.
No, I think that's really good advice. So we're kind of coming to the end of the show, but is there anything else that you want to cover today that we didn't maybe cover with the app, or what's coming with the app?
No, I think I'm just really excited to, hopefully relaunch in May, and summer's our busiest season, so it'll be nice to have an app that actually works and be able to kind of do all my fun marketing things that I've been wanting to do. But yeah, I think if anyone's listening and they've been having an itch to do their own startup, like, just take the next step. Even if it's, I don't know, this is a bad example, but even if you want to start a coffee company, like, work at Starbucks, see how they do it. Like, learn the ins and outs of it. Like, can you work somewhere where you can, get paid for learning on their dime? Like, for me, working at startups and leading their growth, like, I get to learn getting paid. Like, I try all this experience at their company, and I can apply it to Rocks. So even if you're not ready to, like, dive into entrepreneurship, but you're really excited about it, like, work at a startup or work in the industry that you want to go into to kind of take all those learnings and then apply it when you're ready to start something.
No, I think that's really good advice. But how about we close the show with mentioning where people can get more information about yourself, Rax, and any other links you want to mention?
Yeah, you can search Rax on the App Store and Google Play. We're just RAX. And then on Instagram and TikTok, we're rent_Rax.
Perfect, Marley. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.